Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a very different nature folklore than you've had before. And I hope you can hear me. This is Nature Folklore on Sunday, 23rd of January, 1922. Eventually. Well, thank you very much. It seems one or two of you have joined, and let me know if you do hear me. I'm keeping quiet because I'm actually broadcasting this from inside a mixed ward in the hospital, not the usual Shure microphones and the big blue Yeti and all those lovely broadcasting cameras and the usual things that I have. And I'm having to speak to you fairly quietly. And we're going to have a brief one today. So make your comments, make yourself aware that you're there. And this is not going to be as long as it usually is. And let's get on with what we've got. So who have we got so far in? Let's see who's in here with us. Now, I see that you're just coming in now. There's Gary. Hello, Gary. Can you actually hear okay? And good for everyone that's here. As I say, half the people wouldn't even think I was going to be doing this afternoon, but I'm going to have a right old go. Change of scenery, and certainly is. As I say, I'm actually in the ward here. But is the audio okay? I've got it on an automatic audio, so that hopefully it will get through, even though I'm talking a lot softer. Hi, Chandler, how are you doing? Perhaps you can say from way over there. Can you actually hear me? You can certainly see me okay, even though the light is so forth. Yeah, here fine. Fantastic. That's a good start. Anyway, I've just got to get myself focused. I've got this wobbly tray that I can actually adjust. And wonderful. And hello, Alan. How's the balloons? And it's great. Thank you very much. So, to put you in the picture, you might have heard or seen from things that I had a heart attack last Tuesday. And I thought it was indigestion, serious indigestion. And I thought I'll get the ambulance out just to check this out, just in case something's going on. And it wouldn't be too much of a waste of time. Anyway, they arrived in about 10 minutes. Which was fantastic. It only took 2 minutes for the ambulance person to decide that needed to call the air helicopter, the air ambulance. So got the air ambulance. That was around in a few minutes. I was rushed off to Boyle. It looked like half of Boyle was in the GA field there, the Abbey GAA field. And with a send off, I'd love to see if there was any photos. So if any of you from Boyle watching, just send me the photos. It'd be absolutely fantastic. Straight to Galway, the operation as soon as I got in. And within 2 hours of making that phone call, the operation was done. I was actually feeling great, but it saved my life. And that's the reason why I'm actually here now. Hi, Donna. Good morning to you. New Mexico, yeah, feeling pretty good today. Glad that I can do this. So thank you for joining in. As I say, today it was going to be the third part of the divination. I was going to do the mythology folklore of the water serpents as a transition from the divination into this Imbolc, a time of celebration, the snow's melting, the rain, and the various things for Imbolc, and included all the things related to Bridget as well. But as I mentioned about last week, sorry if I got the fingers about. I'm doing this with two iPads, not the usual laptop computer. So excuse me if the fingers are sort of all in different places. But say we're moving next week, and supposed to be moving. Claire's already done a lot of the work for us getting out. We've done an incredible job because I'm not allowed to lift anything for a while. So this is where we're moving from. Just a reminder, because the subject for today is very much on getting away from the straight lines, getting away from the linear, and dealing with the spirals, the circles, and the waves of this time. And that's how it was. That's how it is today when the leaves and everything are out in the tree labyrinth. And that's how the center is, the lovely sanctuary space. And of course, I didn't do the 3 pillars that I usually do because I didn't think it'd be relevant. But now I think about it, it probably is the whole thing of using the folklore within your favorite sanctuary space. Whether this is my favorite sanctuary space is very debatable. And to use that to inspire your poetry, your art, your design, your problem solving, whatever that may be. And of course, show that again. We had a very special visitor last year. There we go. That was about a year ago. And for those that are not familiar, the book about all this sort of stuff, there we go, bathing in the faith breath. It's there. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to change things around for what I usually do. I'm going to tell you about what's coming up rather than go into the subject first. But Anne's here, Anne Balding. Hello, good to see you. Bless you there, and bless you too for all your messages. And Anne Marie McSherry, good afternoon. Yes, thinking better. And as I say, it's probably going to be a short talk, we'll see. And Claire's here as well. There we go. Claire's on as well. Bravest and the best. Wonderful to see you looking so well in spite of the shock. Brenda Burke here, Ballydonegan Beach, West Cork. Great, thanks very much. So it's fantastic. So I'm going to talk about what's coming up for us, which is next week. It should be back in properly in the studio because I'm going home tomorrow. Hopefully going home tomorrow anyway. And it'll probably be the last use of the studio at Carracrory next week too. So it's going to be the first of a 4-part Imbolc series. And of course, we're going to kick off with Bridget as well, with some Bridget. And that's a place familiar to a lot of you down there by the Tully Well, down there in Kildare, where people bathe and feel very much at peace, of course. So we'll go into the traditions and some of the stories. Definitely, you'll be familiar with a lot around Kildare, the symbolism of the oak, some stuff about oak, the actual oak tree, you might not be familiar with. That makes a lot of sense in the folklore and the symbolism. And then we'll talk about Fort as well. And lesser known connections to around Lough, which has the actual River Bridge from there. And so I'll talk a fair amount about that. So that's next week, whatever the date is. I should have the calendar up. You've probably got a better calendar than me. And I'll get the calendar up as there we go. So obviously next week's the 30th. And then the following week on the 6th, going to be doing Imbolc traditions of the new spring. A lot of you have had your snowdrops up early. So there's an example there, a local one. And so we're going very much transitioning into the water traditions and the water folklore. And especially usually this time, we usually have snow. We get our snow looking back over previous years, but I don't think it's going to happen this year. It's going to be quite mild. There might be a strong wind on Bridget's Day that's on the way, so it's going to be a bit different. So we won't exactly be having the melting snows this year, but I will certainly be talking about that. And some of the older Imbolc going back, Babylon, Mesopotamia, and some of the traditions around the world coming on from the coming of the spring and the excitement of it and the things you can do. A lot of people want to put their seeds in and they want to start planting, but it's a little bit early for that because you've still got wild animals and insects. They're still hibernating, so it's not a good idea to disturb what's around, not until equinox, St. Patrick's Day. But up until then, there's things people used to survive on. We're so used to well-stocked supermarkets now, but I know when I was a child, it'd be the time we'd be eating the buds from the hawthorn, bread and cheese, as they called it. The kids used to love some of the things that we got. What's it with the birds on? It tastes sort of chervily. How can I forget that? It's sort of a watery chickweed. They love the chickweed. We cook that up. You put that in the potatoes, and you get it now before it gets stringy. So there's a few foraging things. And seaweed especially, it's a lovely time to go to the shore. The limpets, I love the limpets if you can kick them off. And it's not easy to find the spaghetti, the sea spaghetti. It's absolutely lovely, steamed with a bit of butter and with stuff for flavouring now. I'm not a salt person, so it's great if you got the dillisk or the dulse seaweed and dry it up in the griddle. and that can go on anything and make flavor. Put it in with potatoes, in with your veggies. So it's a great time for foraging and getting by stuff like that. Take you off the idea of trying to get stuff planted too early, and also churning up your land a bit too early. So that's coming up, and then we've got 2 weeks, because I only spent 1 week. We're doing the 2-part series of the She, and of course people vision that in different ways. There's the Grimm's way, the idea of little creatures, little women with wings on. We'll be going into the fairy style and how that came about. But other imagery, the invisible imagery, the guiding spirits, the guardian angels, that type of thing, and also into the place names around here. That's in front of Caracrory, the Koroshiga there, the mound of the fairies, and going into how that affects onto the landscape and how we translate that and how people vision that. So that's coming up on February the 13th and on 20th of February as well. And that's the 4 weeks coming up. And this is another one that's not the She, which has been open to the public. Got a lovely path. I haven't got the path picture there. The hill, the fairies there. And a lot of I wish I could climb that now, but I'm a little bit out of that at the moment. So that's what's coming up. Right, here we go. Anne's here. Chickweed, yes, with potatoes, not something in the States would know about. I've been wanting to encourage chickweed for my chickens, but oh yeah, it's a gorgeous vegetable. And as I say, the children loved it, so they would gather it. So that was very good. Lamo, wonderful, wonderful to see you as well. Thanks. And Susan Samuel from Cheshire. Susan Burton from Cheshire, lovely. Great that you're here. Thanks for joining in, for those of you who have joined in. As I say, most people thought I would have cancelled the day, or it was absolutely cancelled. And glad that you can actually hear it. As I say, I've got a very primitive setup here for doing this. So it's great. Anyway, I'm going to do a little bit. As I say, this whole thing I was going to do, a whole series. It was the transition between the divination on to the spring. And I was going into the Water Serpents, which is huge. Got the Chinese New Year coming up, and that starts on February the 1st. And that goes on through to the 16th, I think. And that's all, and that's all about celebration of water, because of seeing the serpents there as the bringers of rain, bringers of water, and protectors of water. And then you go into the Hindu, where you got the Nagas there. The Nagas are the water serpents said to protect Buddha as well, but they look at those as protection of their water and the coming of the water, the storage and the blessings of water. So it goes through that. And then you come across Europe, and there's very much features of serpents in the lochs, the lakes, the rivers. And certainly in Ireland, they've got the things like the Celtic dragon. And I'm going to be talking, I was going to talk quite a few, but let's give you a few pictures on this. And I'm going to Hazelwood. This is here in County Sligo, just outside Sligo. And there's that wooden one. That's in Lough there. And that one was coming in. That was a few years ago. It always looked that as if it was the serpent was just coming into the shore. And each year we'd look and it was coming a little bit further. And then there it is, mingled amongst the roots of the beech trees that were on the edge of the shore. I think that's quite amazing. So that was its final destination as part of the beech trees here. But a lot of this with the symbolism, especially with the serpents here, it's a reminder, this is all part of a cycle. We don't have a beginning or end. You think twice if you think, oh, this is the beginning of spring. It's just the continuity of our cycle. And there's a lot of imagery of the serpent and the elsewhere in the world, the dragon chasing its tail. And you get that cycle, and there you get the imagery of the tree of life from the Norse mythology behind there. So I think it's a great reminder. It's just talking about putting an image that you can do stories about the flow of life in this and the new birth of this season. And one thing that's interesting, being talking about Bridget, of course, is that celebrated February the 1st. If you think about it, she was actually born 1100 years before there was a Gregorian calendar. And I think they were using certainly the Julian calendar then. And if it was the Julian calendar, I think it would have been February the 19th with ours. And even when I suppose the people recognized her as a saint, that was 300 years before a Gregorian calendar. So it's interesting in a way that February the 1st has been adapted as a time of celebrating her. But that's what people recognize. But talking of that, the water bearers, there's a serpent story from the caves of Cache, right by where we live, where I live. And there's this sort of mythology of this loch, this lake in the middle. And I know when I woke up there, a lot of children know the story. They say, hey, can you tell us the story about the dragon inside the hill? But there's the story that when the snow melts, that the rivers were formed by these serpents that cut out the rivers, and now each year they actually help the water to flow, and that's why it's never in a straight line. But that's how I imagine a lovely story there. I'm not quite sure where that's located, but the way the geology is up at the hill of Cache, I can imagine something very similar to that, that the water flows to come out. And we've got a group water system that actually comes from water up there, so it's very impressive. So that's it. And as I was saying, the water serpents in relation to being the protector and the bringer of water as well, and the clouds. And that's obviously an artist imagery. But then we get that when we look up at the skies anyway. Look at this. We got this when the rain's coming. If it'll come up. No, it's getting. No, it's there it comes now, and there it goes. There we go. That's a familiar imagery. We look up, and don't we imagine things when we look at the clouds? And look at this one, for instance. Isn't that very dragon-like? And you can imagine the dragon being the protector and the bringer of the rain, the water, and the rivers. And that's what the celebration is of all that, because it said when the water falls, that the water serpent becomes a fertility symbol because it's the bringer and blesser of the quality of the water, which is going to be essential for wetting the land before it warms up and before the cereals and everything else can grow, just part of that cycle. So let's see what is being said here. Comments are slow to come up. Excuse me for that. Yeah, the whole thing's slowing down at the moment. Yeah, we go. Deborah Redden. Lovely to see you. Keep well. Thank you very much. And Terry Slack Hardwick, thank you very much for joining in all of this. As I say, this is sort of impromptu. I didn't do any storyboard. I didn't do any preparations. I took some of the photos that I was going to use on the full presentation, and that's what I'm going through today. And I'm trying to move this around so it doesn't bore you with typical hospital backgrounds. So that's what we got for you here. Right. So a few more photos on it. One of the things, and I do bring this up on Nature Folklore quite a bit, really from a family thing, from learning the astrology symbols and writing the charts and that type of stuff. And the one thing that's ignored by a lot of people that call themselves astrologers is the symbols that are the nodes. And you might be familiar. There they go, north and south there, head of the dragon, tail of the dragon. And that's said in a very sincere way, because this comes through from Chinese approach, and then it was used by the Hindus, and they do multi-harmonic charting and calculations much more than any sort of person who calls themselves an astrologer in the West would do. And here's a sort of symbolism here. You've got the north and south dragon. The way that this is interpreted, no matter where they talk about where your planets are aligned, in relation to what's above, so below type of thing, that was developed by the mathematicians of Mesopotamia and so forth, that is symbolic. I'm sorry, I'm losing you here. Let's get you right. Yeah, the indication of the way your life travels. Not it's not it does it's not how can we say it's not a destiny by any means. It's like an optional roadmap, just like picking up any map. You look at it, and it might give you some clues or inspiration of where to go. So it's always said South Node is like that's what you're born to the tail of the dragon. That's always connected to the um, it's always connected. Oh, I'm trying to think of the phrase now. Umbilically connected to where we were born from, and then as you develop your life, you're building up your whole dragon path. So it's worth looking at the nodes in relation to planets if you're looking at some sort of chart. And of course, when you're talking about destiny, you don't know where it's going to go. And I think that's a lovely picture I got there with both the roots and the water. It's not going in any straight line. It's not going in particular direction, is it? It's going in various directions, and you kind of take your choice of which direction your person is going to go. And I think it's very important to never feel that you made a mistake, because any of those have some sort of conclusion. I think it's always so very wise to sort of accept that and go with that. As I say, it's all mapping, and so that's very much on that one. Let's see who we got here. How could the background be boring? How could I must put that up? There we go, Anna. You're very kind to say that. It's not coming up. How could the background be boring when you're smiling faces in it? Well, I'm a little bit aware that there's much more of my face in it this week than usually. It's because I don't have the green screen. I can't put any virtual backgrounds on this. Oh, hello, Penny. We're just leaving. It's nice to see you. Oh, yeah, Penny. I must say, I'm glad you made a reminder there, because I've got onto the serpent bit here, and I got your lovely email this morning. And I'm going to have to actually share that if I can, because this is from the journal of Penny. And she was inspired to write this. Let's get rid of the picture for this now so I can actually perform this. No, there we go. Right, well done, Penny. And right, this is Penny Stevenson who sent this, and I'm losing all the comments. That's right. And so this is what she wrote in dedication for today. And get myself aligned up. That might work. All right, serpent bright outside of time. Your coils are tightly wound around the edge of our existence without beginning or without an end. Your shape is our dark matter weaving between stars and galaxies, holding us fast in the firmament without beginning and without an end. Your eye, the reflection of our birth, is in the steady stare, stardust spirals, the endless dance of transformation without beginning, without an end. So the serpent bright outside of time. When my mind is still, I see that permanence of energy that's without a beginning, without an end. So I assume that's called Without a Beginning and Without an End. So thanks very much for that, Penny, and I'm glad that you've actually popped in, because that reminded me to look up that email. So thank you very much, highly appreciated. And you'll be able to go to the beginning to see what I've been chatting about. And of course, one thing, we can't talk about serpents without talking a bit about the Kundalini rising. There's a little bit of an explanation. I'll give you a moment to read that. Seems to say a bit better than what I can at the moment. And there's something more familiar with the two intertwining sermons. It's always like a helix, isn't it? It looks like a DNA helix where they come to, and then you've got the whole symbolic of maturation, the whole mythology around that. And it's very interesting that I'm actually in the hospital, because this flows into the Caduceus, the oath, and how that came together. And we can even bring in the whole balancing act. So there we have the water dragon, fire dragon, the yin and yang. Yin is always talked of in the Orient as being the cold, the underground, the cool, and of course the above ground, and the heat and the masculine above ground. There you have the fire one there, and as I often say on nature folklore, how a lot of people are talking about how you go into a wood and everything's talking to each other, from the roots, the fungi, and the trees and so forth. But if you go into that, what they're really saying is talking about what's going on underground, that whole social network. But once the plant gets above the ground, there's the sun. And it's every plant for itself, every tree for itself. So I think that's incredible, thinking of how some people view the genders, the male and female genders. Anyway, that's for another week. But that's and again. And I've had a couple of requests. Let's see what he's saying before coming with the request. Beautiful words and images, Penny. Yes, that was lovely. And Penny's thanking me for reading that. Thanks very much. And Claire liked that. And Deborah Redding is thanking you as well. Thanks very much. I'm glad we had something there. There's a few guests that wanted to be on today. We're going to have to actually move them to another time, because using an iPad, it cuts down what I can do. I can't include pre-recorded stuff because it would take up too much horsepower anyway. But the buttons aren't there for actually doing that. I could have had live guests, but I didn't know how stable the reception would be to do that. So we'll bring them on another time. And Penny is thanking Deborah for that, inspired by a post I made a few days ago. So thank you very much on that. And we'll be having live guests that came from next week. So to sort of move on, I was just about to say I had a request, because I was going to be talking about the Irish mythological and folklore serpents, and I'm whizzing this around, trying to find myself, get myself in the middle. And a couple of requests. What about the Lough serpent? I don't know how many know about the Lough monster. It was in May 1960, and in Lough, 3 priests, I think they were out on a boat. They were fishing anyway. They were out on a boat, and they were horrified, just peaceful fishing, and they said they saw something like this, saw ripples. That doesn't look like Lough. That looks like Lough Owl to me. But even Lough Owl has got a serpent story, but that'll be for next year when I bring this back next year. Anyway, they saw something like that, and boom, out come this. They brought us the Loch Ness picture, of course, but they said, oh no, that's the Lough. And that's what they said they had. But if perhaps, but here's another artist impression. There we go. That's the Lough. And there's even someone that's got an amazing one, which looks incredibly real, doesn't it? There you go. How about that one? And I don't know if any of you have actually navigated on Lough itself. I mean, if you go on the boat on Lough, it's like as if you're entering into the Bermuda Triangle anyway. And especially if you've got a bit of swell from storm going up, it takes about 4 or 5 hours to get from right across it over to Athlone. So it's quite a thing, and you're stuck in the middle of that, and you sort of expect all things to happen, because it does take a long time. Roughborough to Athlone. So not surprised anyway. These lads, especially after perhaps sharing a hip pocket supplies while they were out fishing, they're going to actually say whatever it is, it's going to be enlarged. Now, what's a lot of theories, a lot of people try to go underwater and get photos, just like they do with the Loch Ness monster, with this Lough one. But the one thing that's coming up is it was this creature. It looks like a regular eel, doesn't it? And yeah, just an ordinary eel. There we go. And just happily swimming around there. And sometimes these actually originate from often Norway and Sweden, but they do actually get around the Irish coast, and they do slip up into the Shannon. So you do get them. They obviously can handle the salt and the fresh water. So you can get these. It doesn't mean that if you go into Lough, you're just going to be suddenly covered by these things. But the thing with these is, if you're familiar, is try and grab hold of one and open, and it'll open its mouth, and this is what you'll see. Isn't that a bit of a shocker? It's a vampire eel, and there you go. There's and what it is, what they do is, of course, these lads have probably had oars on their boat, and if they're known that if they see oars, they'll actually slither up the oar. And you see one of those things, you see this coming up here, or you're going to be in a shock if you don't know what it is. And so this is what I think these lads saw. They probably had a few, and of course, they can't go off and tell their friends and fellow priests, oh, we had this eel, and it'd be like talking about being scared of a mouse or something like that. So I'm sure, like being storytellers or something like what I do, they bring a lot of folklore, and it had to be some kind of serpent, and it had to be a monster. It suddenly was large, and it wasn't actually crawling up their oar. It was trying to get into their boat, as far as the story goes. So that seems to be the background very much of the Lough. As far as I understand it, the Lough monster is just a pure vampire eel, but you don't want it to get on your arm. It is like, with a mouth like that, if it gets on your arm, it's like having a big leech. Very difficult to get that off. So it is something to be concerned of if you suddenly got one of those coming up your boat oar. But that's what it feels the background. So that's a variation on the serpents, saying the serpent folklore. But that's talking of a real life story there, rather than the folklore and the mythology. And so Chandler says, I'm imagining these three priests agreeing to how they talk about the lie about the eel. And Cliff, hey, it's Cliff Carr. Good to see you up and in good spirits. I have to catch up with the show later. So yeah, thank you for being on. I imagine a lot of people say, what the heck's he doing on? And he's supposed to be in bed. So I imagine that people will be following up. I'm going to keep this very short in comparison. I say very short. I've probably been waffling on for quite a while already, haven't I? Yeah, oh goodness me, we've already done half an hour. So there we go. What else can I go with you? After those sort of horrific vampire eel, let's go to what this is going to be about for the next few weeks. So say the vision pool, one of the lovely traditions I like that comes into this time. You even get this on Bridges Day, the women looking into the pools, the holy wells, looking to find out who their mate's going to be. That's what it used to be. Who's going to be the mate on Beltana May Day? Although that got forwarded, a lot of women did that on May Day Eve, on Beltana Eve. But if something was done very much so as a part of the Bridges Day time, Bridges Eve. But that's a big one. That's another mountain one. So there's different pool stories, and I'll be talking about this over the next few weeks. Anyway, I had to sort of wind this down by a reminder of what's coming up over the next few weeks. But the important thing is you're going to be surrounded by this, and the daffodils are starting to come out. Excuse me, because of here anyway, the weather is so much milder for this time of year than what we normally get. Last year was snowing on this day, and it was 1 degree, so it's very different this year already. So I think that's about as much as I'm going to share with you today, much shorter. And certainly fire any questions, and certainly it's a huge appreciation that you have joined on, and a big surprise to me, I didn't have to go rushing off to the toilet or something. I had this all prepared with a picture and a background music, but that didn't happen. So I thank you very much for joining. As I say, very improvised edition. There was no back screen, no green screen, no sort of dramatic photographs, no dramatic videos, and so forth. Thank you for joining me, and in a very strange environment and situation. It was a pleasure that you came out, and especially on this lovely day here anyway. and join me in this. So thanks, and have a lovely week, everyone, and be back with us starting with the Imbolc series next week, towards Bridges Day. Have a lovely, healthy, and inspired week. Thank you very much for joining me. So that's all I got today. And bye, everyone.